So now, say you want to have these pieces of cardboard somehow interact. One way you do that is essentially, if you've ever put together like some toys go together like this, it's a slot formation where you cut halfway through one piece, halfway through the other, and when you put them together, my dog's going to bark. Okay, back from the dog distraction. As I was saying, you cut each piece halfway through, and then when you slot them together, they are the same with the cross. So, let me do a little marking here, and I will return momentarily. Okay, so what I've done here is I lined up my pieces flush next to one another at one end, and then I scoot this down so you can do that. Okay, so flush together at one end, and then I made a mark, the same mark, and this is going to be where they end up intersecting. After I made that mark, I measured each one. These are not exactly the same width. This one is about 6 1/4. This one is about 6 1/8, which means their centers are not the same measurement. This one is at 3 1/8, and this one is at 3 1/16. And why do I do that? Because I'm going to get them to totally be even in their meeting point. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to cut, and I'm making this mark for myself, I'm going to cut these parts, these interior sides, so that when they slot together, they'll go together just like this. And then my flesh end will be together. This is not flesh, but together is flesh. Okay. So I'm going to start with one. Don't get overly excited and try to do 2 at a time. So I'm going to start, remember, deliberate. So start at your central point, make a cut, light pressure, light, slow. Okay, there's another one that might have done it. Not quite, we'll go one more. And if you take your ruler away and you need to make the same mark, kind of place your blade, realign your ruler, and you'll be cutting in the same groove. And one more just to grow on. Okay, so that is cut. See that? And I'm going to do the other one. Now see how handy it is that I made these marks of which side I'm going to cut? Because you sit this to the side, you bring it back, and you're like, oh, I don't know. How was it aligned? I really don't know. Okay, so now, same thing. Place the point of your blade where you want it to start. Light pressure, slow, deliberate cut with a sharp blade. Let's do another one. And we'll do one more. One thing to think about is that this cardboard has some thickness. So when I go to put these together, it's probably going to be draggy and tough. Let's see how it goes. Ah, all right, that's starting to happen. Kind of give it a little bit of a tweak here and there. A little bit stuck. Okay. So there are 2 intersecting planes. Alternately, you could also make a wider channel so that it's a little bit of a better fit, because this is just a little bit wonky. Let's try it just with one. This one seemed to have the most resistance. I'm going to bring my ruler back, and I'm going to turn it around from the way that I cut it so that I can have the ruler, and I'm giving it, I'm talking a 1/16 or less. Now this way I'm cutting from the outside toward my center. You got to be very careful that you don't overcut. Okay. All right. Let's see how doing one works with it. Come on, come on, come on. Okay. Okay. That's a little better. And I'm going to say that doing that to both pieces is going to give you an even better cut. So I'm going to do it to the other piece also. Careful, careful, slow, light pressure. Give it another draw. It's probably enough to remove that little line. Why did I settle upon about a 1/16 of an inch? Because that's about how thick this is, this material. If you should use some cardboard that is thicker or thinner than this, then that is the width that you need to remove in order to make your pieces go together. All right, so that's nice and clean, wonderful. And okay, so with this method of putting things together, you're not limited to straight things. You're not even limited to stuff going all the way through like this. Let's pause. Okay, so what about curved pieces? Once you become comfortable just using straight lines, you might consider, did you notice the hesitation in my voice? You might consider trying curves. Again, same things you want to do. Light pressure, slow, deliberate, sharp. Just go ahead and scoot that thumb right in. Just keep your fingers as much of a solid away from the blade mass as possible. All right, so I am turning the cardboard. I'm going to go past my drawn line here. And then I'm going to start and go the other way. You might have bigger pieces of cardboard than this, which might require that you can't turn it so easily. And as you go through, you'll notice the way it feels different depending on how you're angling toward the corrugation of the material. Okay, so that's a first pass. Oh, and then I got this. Okay, let's turn this around. I'm going to go past where I started. Slow, slow, light. Multiple cuts is better than one firm, dangerous cut. Okay, so everything has a first go. You see how it did not come through the back side, which means gotta do it again. So you want to go in your same channel, similar light pressure. I think it might be cutting through. Let's check. Yep, that's starting to come through. Tuck your thumb, tuck your thumb. Slow, light, deliberate. Okay, that's starting to come out. I'm going to give this one more little bop because it seems like there are a few little connected parts. Come here. And if you have a long curve like this, take it a little at a time, a little at a time. Rushing is your enemy when it comes to cutting cardboard or mat board or anything with a blade, whether that's a power tool or what have you. Okay, so here's one shape. I'm going to cut the other one out and come back. All right, so I've got my two curvilinear shapes, which is probably a word that you're hearing a lot lately, being a foundation student. Okay, so how are these going to interact? That you ideally would have a plan already for how these might interact, but you're going to use the same slot method, maybe not go all the way through so that they will be flush like this pair is. Too close. But sort of have a sort of different sort of interaction. So you could also do angles too, depending. I'm going to make a couple marks here. I'm going to decide where these are going to interact. I'm going to draw one line. And then I'm going to choose how far they're going to intersect, which will not be all the way. And I'm not going to go on a perpendicular angle. I'm going to say here to here. All right, so those are short. This also saves me from the whole check mark thing, because if you can already plan where you want your cut to stop, then it's obvious where you're going to stop and you don't have to remind yourself. Okay, so keep those fingers away. 1, 2, 3. Cut all the way through. Let's turn it around. Go ahead and remove that additional material so we'll have a very easy slot insertion. Slow, light, sharp. Slow, light, sharp. Okay. All right, there's that one. And now we'll come here. Slow, light, sharp. Slow, light, sharp. Turn it around and remove. Actually, I'm going to do this because of the way the mark is. I'm going to remove this little side bit. 1/16 of an inch. This cardboard is probably actually 1/8 of an inch, but as it compresses, that'll give it a tight hold. You don't want it to be floppy. Better to be too tight than to be floppy, because there's kind of no turning back from a floppy joint. Then you might have to tape it or something, which is not quite as elegant as just a nice fit. Okay, and that'll kind of clean out as you put it together. So here are two curvilinear shapes, and how are they going to look? Okay, that little corner got a little bit abused in the insertion of that. So there you go. There is another, not all the way through, which one could argue is more interesting, that it doesn't go all the way through. That is a super basic thing, the slot insertion type of joinery. Look, that's like a little sculpture all on its own. Ha ha ha. And then what could you do from here? Actually, it would be nice if there were some negative shapes in here, just to sort of get some interest and views going on in this three-dimensional object. But there you go, from 2 dimensions to 3, and that is a basic slotting technique.